this is not a Gaza-Palestinian war against Israel. It's not an Arab war against Israel. It's an Iranian war against Israel, fought through terrorist proxies. And until you recognize that Iran is the problem here, not just because it is armed and equipped and trained and financed Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but because it's armed and equipped and financed and trained the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon.
I am delighted to welcome to the show John Bolton, the former United States ambassador to the United Nations. Welcome to the show, John Bolton.
Glad to be with you.
We didn't want to keep you waiting because we want to hear your views on all the big news that is happening in the United States. There is still a long line of trials facing former President Donald Trump. There's electoral hijacking accusations in the state of Georgia. The former Georgia Republican Party chairman David Schaefer is on trial. So there's a lot to talk about. Tell us what is happening in Georgia.
Well, that case has been thrown into confusion by extraordinarily poor judgment by Fani Willis, the chief prosecutor, who engaged in an affair with one of the other prosecutors, and the Trump lawyers and other defendants' lawyers tried to get her disqualified from the case. That didn't work, although the judge really excoriated her for unprofessional behavior. It set the case back, it delayed it, and that's really Trump's main strategy in the Georgia case, the two federal indictments, and the New York case. Put him off until after the election, because in the case of the two federal indictments, if he's elected president, he can have them dismissed once he's sworn into office. Now, the one case where delay has failed as a strategy is in the New York indictment, the New York State indictment, which is allegations about paying hush money to a porn star and then concealing it on the books and records of the Trump organization as payment for lawyers. That case will go to trial in April, which will mean Trump will be the first American president ever to face a trial in a criminal case. And we'll see what happens there with the jury, and we'll see what impact it has on Trump's political future.
Is he in danger of running out of money? Because on the case in New York where he was found guilty of overvaluing his assets, he's managed to have the bond, the size of the bond halved, I think, but it's still a huge amount of money.
Yeah, now he says miraculously he's found $175 million. He will be able to post the bond within the time given him by the court. And his Truth Social media operation has successfully merged into a SPAC and gone public. And its valuations on the stock exchange right now are sky high. I wouldn't buy it because I think it's going to collapse at some point. But that has overnight, at least in paper value terms, given him another $3.5 billion that he might be able to access at some point, unless the laws of gravity begin to apply again. The stock comes down to what its real price is. Trump is very lucky in many respects, and he may still be lucky enough financially to dodge the consequences of all this litigation.
But as a God-fearing man, I'm pleased to see that he's now selling a Bible. You can buy a Trump Bible for $59.
Yeah, this is a sign he's not as wealthy as he likes to think. If you're that wealthy, you don't have to sell Bibles for $59 a copy. But he can't help himself. If he sees somebody gives him a way to make money, whether it's off God or God or country, he'll do it. And that's Donald Trump for you.
So you were the US ambassador to the United Nations. Now, clearly, you will have obviously been closely involved in many issues to do with Israel in your time there. In fact, one could argue, you may have a view on this, that one of the credit points to the Trump presidency was the Abraham Accords and the prospect of peace in the Middle East, which, of course, has now far receded. What was your thought on the UN resolution, obviously calling for a ceasefire, in which the United States decided to abstain and incurred the wrath of the Israeli government?
Well, I think it was a mistake on our part. The president had been humiliated on Friday when a U.S. draft, which, in ambiguous language to be sure, but loosened the connection between a ceasefire and the release of Israeli hostages. The absence of that linkage had led the administration to veto three prior Security Council resolution. So when the U.S. made that concession in its draft on Friday, I think the administration thought it could walk the fine line between uh, abandoning Israel on the one hand, but placating the very negative constituency in the Democratic Party that's against Israel on the other. And they were humiliated when Russia and China, I think, just for the fun of it, vetoed the American resolution. I think the White House compounded its problems by abstaining on Monday because that resolution that an American abstention allowed to come into force had two major problems. One, there was no condemnation of Hamas for the October 7th attack. And second, there was no linkage whatever to a ceasefire and the subsequent release of hostages. So I think the White House, Joe Biden, has made significant concessions at the UN, got nothing for him, probably hasn't satisfied his domestic political critics, and the war goes on.
It is interesting, isn't it? There are a lot of people now who think that Biden has messed things up, that he's fallen out with the Israeli leadership, which is a loaded point anyway because of Netanyahu's position, but also not the respect, as it were, of the Arab nations, all of whom obviously are very engaged in this issue. I mean, I rather from afar admire Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, but has he made kind of major mistakes in terms of? I mean, I appreciate it's a tightrope one has to walk here, but has America kind of lost respect in the region as a result of its conduct?
No, I think it's never seen what this conflict is all about. But by the way, neither is the United Kingdom. This is not a Gaza Palestinian war against Israel. It's not an Arab war against Israel. It's an Iranian war against Israel, fought through terrorist proxies. And until you recognize that Iran is the problem here, not just because it is armed and equipped and trained and financed Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but because it's armed and equipped and financed and trained the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Shia militia groups in Iraq and Syria that have attacked American military and civilian positions there. So, Iran is dialing up the rheostat here, dialing it down over there. But Iran is the head of the snake in this case, and the administration won't face up to that. Frankly, neither will most of the rest of the West. It's not the Arab world that's the problem here so much, because they too, particularly the Gulf Arab states, recognize the hand of Iran here. It's because if you don't understand what the strategic threat is, as the Biden administration does not, you can't deal with it.
I think that's absolutely fascinating what you said about Iran. I mean, obviously, I take your kind of oblique criticism of our Foreign Secretary David Cameron in terms of his call for a ceasefire. Can you think of any US politician or future administration that is likely to take on Iran? Because, of course, Netanyahu has become very close to effectively calling for an attack on Iran. What is likely to happen in the
Well,
next
I don't.
two years or so, depending on who becomes president and how this progresses?
Well, I don't think Biden is likely to do it now or after he is reelected. Many people think Donald Trump will because they saw his first term as being very favorable to Israel. I wouldn't count on that. I think Emmanuel Macron came very close to having Trump meet with then Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif at the Biarritz summit, G7 summit in 2019. I write about that in my book. Trump was that close to meeting with the Iranians, and the prospect of a big deal, may permit him to go ahead and do it. I just think we're all missing the boat if we think that somehow getting a ceasefire in Gaza is going to solve
Mm.
the problem. The problem's not in Gaza. The problem's in Tehran.